the hour. All right, Rob, let's stick with baseball. And this is going to be an interesting discussion because it's just hard for me to believe. But the Astros and the Red Sox, for that matter, are being accused, both of them, on social media, which is not official, obviously. That doesn't mean it's true. But they are being accused with a little bit of, with some reasoning behind it, of cheating again. We, of course, know both of these teams have been, called out, exposed by Major League Baseball for cheating.
If you remember, Joey Cora lost his gig, and then they hired him back. Alex Cora, I'm sorry. Lost his gig, and he came back, Chris, after.
Right. Rob G., summarize what's going on.
Well, this started in Game 5. I don't know if you guys remember watching this, but during the TV broadcast, they mentioned that the umpires that were in Boston, the Game 5 was in Boston, had to have a little conference in between innings.
Right.
Because there was a light shining on the back wall of, I believe it was right field. So they didn't know where it was coming from. They didn't know what it meant. But Joe Buck even made mention of it during the broadcast. Hey, the umpires are very concerned about a random light shining right here on the outfield wall.
Does that mean a fastball's coming or a curveball?
And then,
that's all you need.
As soon as it was mentioned in the broadcast, it went away and never came back. So we don't know what that was about. That was just a little bit sketchy. But then it continued in last night's Game 5. Was that Game 5, right? Correct. Game 6. Whatever. It happened last night's game.
Right.
The Houston Astros. Now, if you go back 2 years ago, the Yankees accused the Astros of cheating, not just by using the trash cans, which they ended up getting caught for, but for also whistling as a way to relay to batters what kind of pitch was coming. They had two different kinds of whistles. One of them was for a fastball. One was for an off-speed pitch.
And if you remember, if you listen to some of the videos, you could hear it.
Oh,
you hear the whistle.
Yes. It was not like I heard the video, and you could hear it.
Yesterday, during their game, you can hear an audible whistle during Yordan Alvarez when he had a solo home run. They gave him their first 1-0 lead. And, of course, social media is buzzing around about it. But it became an even bigger talking point when earlier this morning on 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, they have found video of this happening throughout the series, including during Jose Altuve's late home run in Game 4.
Here we go.
So the scuttlebutt is that both teams are doing something not above board to try to get an edge in this series.
All right, Rob, let me quickly go first. I'll be quick. When I first started reading this, now look, the evidence, that's a lot of, it's, again, not official. They need, Major League Baseball or somebody official to really look into this. But that's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Right.
All
There's something there, Chris. It's not like you're like, oh, well, I don't hear anything, or what are you talking about?
Right.
Like,
it's obvious. Right. And I just have a hard time believing, Rob, that after all the Astros in particular went through, but, we could throw in the Red Sox too because it was only a few years ago, that these teams would have the audacity to cheat again? And you told me, Chris, yeah, they could. So go ahead. You're the baseball guy. It's hard for me to believe, Rob.
I know, and the only reason I say that it's not beyond belief, because what you're saying is all rational, right? It got busted. It was a big deal. They've been disgraced so much so, Chris. Think about this: that 4 Astros made the All-Star team and didn't show up in Denver because they didn't want to be booed like never before, right?
Right.
In Denver in front of Baseball America. So that's how big of a deal. The general manager lost his gig. The manager lost his gig. It was a big stinking deal. Altuve, who was the darling of baseball, right? Like this guy was like unbelievable. MVP, getting these big home runs. Altuve, Chris, right now has the 3rd most postseason home runs in the history of baseball. You hear what I just said? The 3rd most. Manny Ramirez is 1st. Bernie Williams is 2nd. And Jose Altuve's 3rd. That's what kind of footprint he's
Right.
left in the game.
He'd be a legend if there weren't
legend.
these cheating scandals.
Okay? They've gone to the ALCS 5 years in a row. Ask Yankee fans if they would love to have that, right?
Right.
Okay,
right.
so here's why I think it is possible is because after all the Barry Bonds stuff, all the Rafael Palmeiro, all the
Mark
McGwire,
all the,
Sammy
yeah.
Sosa. Chris, since then, people have been busted again on the Jews. You would think nobody would think about doing that in the major leagues or coming close to going
Right.
down that road.
Right.
It ain't the numbers that of before, but some guys
It
have
still
been
happens.
busted and suspended because they think they're smarter than everybody else. They think they got a way of masking. You know, there are people working around the clock to try to mask that
Right,
stuff.
right.
You see it in the Olympics, right? With track
Oh, yeah.
stars,
Yep.
all that, wrestlers. They try to mask so that you can't tell that they're juicing or using something. So I'm with you. It seems like it would be ridiculous to try to do that with everybody watching, but I don't put anything past people who are looking for an advantage, and I think that there's too much smoke here for there not to be some fire.
Well, let me throw this out at you, because when you and I were coming up, you know, it was kind of winked at that cheating was a part of the game. Gaylord Perry is a legend.
Yep.
And he was known, you know, it was, what is he doing to the baseball, you know, and people kind of joked about it. Phil Niekro.
Phil Niekro
you know,
got caught on the mound with an emery board, Chris. Do you remember
Right.
that? He had it in his back pocket. The umpire came out. There's like 40,000 people in the stands and the TV camera on him. And you got to look at the video. Go to YouTube and Phil Niekro. And he pulls the emery board out and does his hands up in the air like,
Yep.
what is that? I don't have anything. And
Right.
it's right there. It's like,
It was
what
such
you
a
know?
joke. And it was just kind of winked at. You know what I mean? And both
Right.
of those guys, by the way, are Hall of Famers. And it was just accepted. It's part of the game. Do you think that culture, this is what we're experiencing, is that culture run amok? Where even, obviously the cheating has advanced with technology, and even as the Astros and the Red Sox were caught and exposed, it goes, we even saw it ride with the pitching, you know, with the, what they call spider tack, whatever it was called.
Right. Googate. Googate. Right.
Is it just like accepted within baseball? We're all looking for an edge, and we'll all do whatever it takes to get that edge. And if you get caught, so be it. But we're all doing it, and we're just, you know, those of us that don't get caught, good for us. Like, do you think that is kind of the feeling within baseball?
I think there's a part of that, Chris, but I think that these guys have taken it to a new level. And especially what we saw, you remember as soon as they started cracking down on the goo, you remember some pitchers had to go back. Garrett Cole straightened it out, but he had like a bad 4 or 5 starts. Where it looked like he couldn't get anybody out. And then everybody was like, well, maybe, you know, he can't pitch without it, right? Because he was bad. Then he turned it around.
And then went back and
And then, right.
again, but yeah.
And then you look at, I think the technology and the stuff is like gone, you know, run amok, gone like out of control, where people are like, okay, it's one thing to try to sneak a look and see what the catcher puts down, if there's a curveball coming or something.
Which I'm
or
cool
trying to
with
steal
that.
a sign. Me too.
If I'm on
I don't have
second
a problem with
base
that.
and I can figure out what the catcher's, you know,
Right.
sign is, then
But when you're using cameras and banging trash cans and stuff like that, it's a little more high tech. And the Red Sox, you remember, it was about an Apple Watch inside the dugout, and they banned people from wearing Apple Watches during the game because they could help hitters. So I think that the Gaylord Perry thing, I remember, I think it had become, Chris, almost like a gimmick. Because he kept going back to the back of his head like he had grease on there.
even when he didn't. Right.
Even when he did, exactly. And it was kind of like to psych the hitter out. Did he just put
Right.
something on the ball?
Right.
What did he just do?
Right.
I saw him touch the back of his head. Oh, he's going to throw me a spitball. Wow. You know,
Right.
can I hit it? And then you start second guessing all that. People scuffing the baseball. That was a big thing too, scuffing it. So that and the emery board and knuckleballs and all that. So I think there was some of that, but the high-tech cheating, I think, just like we saw with the Patriots and Spygate Everybody said, well, everybody kind of does that. Well,
Right.
no one's ever been fined $500,000 like Bill Belichick, losing draft picks over it, right? And then the commissioner wouldn't even let us see the tapes, Chris.
Right. Right.
So there was more to that. This wasn't what everybody else was doing. Couldn't have been.
Yeah, this is it's crazy, Rob. It's hard to believe they would do it, but you make some good points. And I think, Rob, and you talked about everybody trying to get the edge, everybody thinking they're smarter than the next guy and they can get away with it. You know what I think a lot of it boils down to? Obviously, everybody's competitive and they want to win. But Rob, let's just face it. There's so much money at stake.
No doubt.
That it is a huge temptation. Rob, if I take PEDs and that's the difference in me, say, becoming an all-star or me hitting 40 home runs versus 25, whatever it may be, you know how much money that could be?
And if you sign a big deal, you see, I mean, everybody doesn't get $300 million in baseball, but if you sign a big deal, Chris, and you use it, you don't get caught. Say you sign a Robinson Cano with Seattle. Remember, he got almost $300 million, right? And then he got busted twice. He wound up getting busted. So
but he gets the money.
The money that you don't forfeit the money. He has the money. He's going to be rich for the rest of his life. And
that's the temptation, man. You know what I mean? Because it's like, even if I get caught, everybody, the players in the league, we all know what's going on. They're not going to stop respecting me for the most part. People did go at the Astros in the league, but
like you said, they felt like the Astros had taken it to another level.
To another level. But that's it, man.